Okay, welcome back to Seeds. I'm your host, Kristine.
And I'm Tracy.
And today, Tracy and I are going to talk about a topic that we are all faced with, probably, most of us probably on a daily basis, and something that we're constantly overcoming, something that we're constantly faced with and challenged with in our daily lives. The topic we're going to be discussing today is temptation. What I'm trying to figure out is whether or not temptation is a useful sort of construct or tool in our, when we're faced with it, what it does for us. And I don't know, I can think about times in my life when I've been tempted and I've given in to those temptations, and how it has served me and how it hasn't served me. More importantly, how it hasn't served me, really.
Yes.
Because I think temptation, for the most part, is something that we have to overcome.
Yep.
Right? And there's different temptations.
So technically it is serving you.
And how? How do you think that?
I think it's serving you because it presents you with a desire.
Okay.
And it's for you to decide, if you act on that desire, what possible consequences will come from following that desire. Okay,
so it's a desire, and it's not to say that all desires are bad desires, but when we're talking in the context of temptation, we can, I guess for this conversation, we can take for granted we're talking about something that doesn't serve us well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If it's a temptation, as opposed to a goal that we're actually trying to move towards. A temptation is something that, I guess, keeps us away from that goal. Would that?
Or push us forward if we overcome it. But I look at temptation, I think that it's kind of two-sided in a way, because temptation, I believe, can only be used if you desire something. If you don't desire something, it can't tempt you.
Then there's nothing.
Right.
You're right.
You can't be tempted by it.
Yeah,
so
there wouldn't.
That's where I think the desire ties in.
Interesting. And okay, because then what it makes me think about is, it's giving in to certain temptations. And I mean, we can get into what some of these temptations might be for in different situations. But in general terms, when you give into a temptation, you are in many ways sacrificing the long-term goal for a short-term gratification or gain or whatever it is. And I mean, we see that often with people who are, let's say they're struggling with weight issues, right? And again, personal self-image of what their ideal image of themselves would like to be, right? This is in no way trying to say that one way is better than another or wrong, but for whatever that person's individual images that they want, they might have, let's say, a weakness for sweets.
Yes.
And they know that to indulge in sweets all the time is going to keep them further and further away from that goal. And then they're constantly, in
a vicious cycle.
And somehow attracting to themselves
more
Vashon cakes.
Yes.
For me, it's cheesecake and chips. I don't know. I've got this thing with chips.
Me, it's chocolate almonds.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, and then there's other temptations too. I mean, there's temptations of the heart.
Yep.
Right, as well, that we know it doesn't necessarily serve us, but we either have some sort of maybe addiction or attachment to certain things, and we know full well. I mean, we know full. How many times have you known that something is not serving your end goal?
Right.
And you still partook in it, or you still engaged in it, or you still, how many times, like, really?
I think that happens to us often. I think as you get more wise to what is happening, you could see it coming from a mile away, so you're a little more prepared. But when you're not prepared for it, or you're still in I'm going to say a little self mode, that's when I find the ego takes over and you just go ahead and do it. But 9 times out of 10, I can't think of any temptation that has come and produced a positive result in the end. I can't think of even one.
No, really, because like, you mean that you've given into?
Yes, that has.
It always sets you back.
It does.
It always sets you back. Yeah, I mean, there's so many instances I can think about, and it's not so much about the instances as I'm now seeing it as being opportunities. And I think that when you start looking at temptations as you really made a mental shift when you begin looking at temptations not necessarily as temptations but opportunities to overcome to get to that.
And I think we're given those to show us that we can overcome and to help us grow.
To strengthen us,
right? To strengthen us so that when the next one comes, because even if you look at the example of Jesus in the Bible with Satan, and Satan went into the desert and tempted him 3 times. Well, a lot of people don't realize that obviously Jesus was tempted. He was tempted or else it wouldn't work on him. It didn't work, but he had to overcome the temptations that were put before him. He still had, obviously, something within him why the devil thought he might bite and might take the offer.
It's funny you say that because, as you know, I have a gentleman who coaches me in personal development, Noel Waldron, and he brought that same scenario up, and he was saying, like, Jesus, and I never thought of it that way before. I never ever thought of it that way before. That, I mean, we always hear the last temptation of Christ. We always hear all these things, but I think we always assumed that
he couldn't even be tempted.
That he couldn't even be tempted. When in fact, you know, again, we're speaking in Bible context, but and those stories are fantastic stories as references and as examples for us to follow, whether you believe in the Bible or not. I mean, these stories are incredible. But Jesus was here as a man, and he, in the full experience, in the full human experience. So he was tempted beyond measure, and he actually felt the temptation. It rang strange to me because I thought, what are you saying? So Jesus wanted to give in and wanted to take these kingdoms that was being offered to him. Like he actually, because there's an ego in there. So basically you're saying that Jesus had an ego. That there was a slight ego that he had to overcome. But I guess as all humans, we all have egos. So why wouldn't he?
You can.
And did. Was offered everything and actually felt temptation for it, but for his mission. But for his mission, he was able to. And again, I wonder. I mean, I personally would like to be able to have an opportunity to sit down in front of Jesus and say, like, how long did it take you to process that? You know, was it an instant thing? You know, I'm inclined, I want to believe it was an instant thing based on his level of enlightenment and whatever it was. And it doesn't matter how much time, it's still the same processing that the individual goes through.
Whether it takes a second or a day or a year, you still have to go through the process. So, I mean, I know if I can't say I know for sure. I'm hoping that if I was fasting for 40 days and someone tempted me to turn stone into bread, I'm hoping I would say no, but I don't, as I know myself now, I'd be hungry. You know what I mean? I'd be hungry. And it's like, well, maybe just one little piece won't matter, but that's the thing.
Yeah, I'll take that one piece of bread and throw away.
Exactly. And
just give me a morsel, just one morsel, and to hell with humanity.
But that shows you the strength of character he had, because it's funny, me and a family member were talking about the whole crucifixion, if you want to go into the biblical thing, the crucifixion, and we both said at the time, if it was left to me, everybody would be dead, because I'm not going through that for nobody. You know what I mean? But now that I have a child, I would absolutely, or if there's even, I'm sure all of us have that person or people that they feel that they would do what he did for. And the fact that he could, I personally, and I know you believe this too, is that he was sent here as an example that we can overcome anything, and he proved it time and time and time again. So I think temptations are possibly God's way to show us that you too have that power to overcome.
I'll be honest, in my walk, and I'm really happy to say this now, that how I view temptations, and it doesn't mean that I always don't give into them, but I'm giving into them less and less and less and less and less. And I'll be honest, using Jesus as an example, as I always have in my life, And I've taken it just as that. I don't think Jesus was saying, yes, follow me, meaning follow my example, not just follow behind me, like follow me to do and be in the same light and awareness that I am in. And now it's at the point where when certain things come that I view as a temptation, honest to goodness, I look at them as opportunities for spiritual growth. For absolute spiritual growth.
Yes.
And I would honestly say that we really need to start blessing those temptations, blessing those obstacles, because they're put in our path as a way for us to realize our full potential, our full potential. And that potential is endless. Like it's endless.
Absolutely. Well, even the Bible says, I know we bring up the Bible a lot, but that is our platform somewhat that we grew up on.
It's the lens from which I look out of. And wasn't I just, sorry, you're saying something. Wasn't I just saying to you, like, all of those figures in the Bible, I remember I sent you a text today.
Yes.
All of those figures in the Bible, Moses, Noah, everything, I honestly, I believe all of them are in us in some ways where we can relate to the struggles that they have, and maybe they're there also to show us an example of a particular struggle that they overcame, so we can also learn from their example.
Absolutely.
And Job just strikes me as one of the main figures in the Bible that was faced with, his was faith. It was huge faith that he had. Really, actually, I'm not even sure if it was temptation. No, because he wasn't. It wasn't really
temptation. To a degree, because what happened with him was that all of his riches, all of his children, everything was taken away from him, and what the goal of
he was tempted to turn his back on God.
To renounce God.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And that's where that was the temptation. If you want all these things back, you want me to stop tormenting you, turn your back on God. So it was a temptation.
Yeah. Really, an ultimate one, really. Yeah. Because it wasn't like here I'm gonna give you all of this. It was really just
I'm going to keep on punishing you and taking things away from you until you do it.
Yeah.
So it's the other side.
Until you start believing that God doesn't exist, because really I can see somebody in that position thinking
his friends were telling him
God really exists. Like
his friends were saying, look at you. His friends were saying, look at you. Look at all the stuff that happened. Just renounce God and be done with it and die. Yeah. You know what I mean? But he refused. To do it.
I love all those people in the Bible. Like honestly, really,
absolutely.
and this is why that last episode, and we said it before that, as much as I'm no longer, and I'm not, you can speak for yourself in terms of clarifying that, but no longer part of a religious organization. Religion is and has served as such a huge foundation for me in terms of those figures and the stories and the examples and in the Bible, and as it relates to temptation, we are constantly faced with.
It's a part of our walk. And I think the more you overcome them, then I believe there can come a time, the more that you overcome them, that it becomes second nature to you to just overcome it, and it doesn't become a temptation.
Well, you get used.
Yeah, you kind of see it coming a mile away.
And you get used to the energy of overcoming it.
Exactly.
You get used to what that feels like.
Yes.
And then your confidence builds, and you're right. It doesn't feel.
It won't feel like a temptation anymore. And I think that
because you have your end goal in sight.
Exactly, and then nothing's going to sway you from that path. Because, like I was saying earlier, is that. In the Bible, it also says, when you were talking about us having that power within to do it, we are made a little less than angels. And even the same one who did overcome such harsh temptation said that we will do greater things still.
That's right.
So then I think that's his way of letting you know that you can do all these things. You can do everything. And it's just for you to recognize your power. Recognize your power and what you're capable of, and don't I know we said this in a past episode, but us always giving into, I'm only human. Well, do you know how great a human being is?
That's the thing.
That's it, because not only we are body and spirit, we've got both. You know what I mean? Because for me, And believe me, I am, if we want to go that way, I am human. You know what I mean? And I know we all have our struggles that we have to go with. But I do believe that when you really truly connect with the Spirit, the Most High, He will give you clarity if you seek it. Put it this way, I believe, for me, and I can speak for me, when I have sought clarity from Him, He's always answered.
Yeah.
He's always answered me. And He's answered, but I'm the one that chooses to either ignore it or accept it and make my choice.
I gotta say this, because I'm gonna be honest, like, not even be honest. I used to hear people talk, and I would hear people say that. I understand it now, but I want to talk about it, because I'm sure there's other people who, when they hear you say, He's answered, they probably think, like, for someone who's never really experienced that, and was it an alto voice? Was it a bass voice that you heard? Like, in understanding what that experience of an answering is, because I think some people just won't necessarily understand what that experience of hearing an answer or receiving an answer is. Can you speak to that?
The way I think,
and maybe it's different for everybody.
I think that's what I was going to say. I think it's different for everybody, but I also believe that the ones, and this is no judgment on anybody, but I believe the ones that would question if He answers or not are possibly the ones that don't fully believe in His power. I think that, put it this way, God is a gentleman. I think He's a gentleman or a lady, I don't know. But whatever He chooses to be, He will be. He is not going to interject Himself in your life unless you ask Him to. So you won't get clarity if you're not leaving a door open for Him to come. Do you know what I mean? So with me, when I get answers, I don't hear a voice, but...
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
What do you
to
get?
me, I think He speaks...
Because that could scare somebody.
No,
like,
for me, it was never a voice.
Tracy, like, what...
For me, it's an intuition. It's a thought. You know what I mean? And I believe that because... I don't know if a lot of people have read that book, Conversations with God. Kristine actually pointed me to that book, which is a phenomenal book. There's some things that are sketchy in there that I kind of question, but I'm still trying to, work through. But in Conversations with God,
by Neil Donald Walsh.
Yes. He made a point of saying that when him and God were in conversation, and he was giving Neil instruction, according to Neil, on what to write, there's a whole part of it that discusses words and thought, and how words make thoughts get lost in translation. So I believe with me, He deals with me in thought, and I can't question it because the inner feeling and truth that comes with it is undeniable.
Right.
That's how I...
It's so funny you use that word. I'm trying to think of what it was I saw, and there was... Who was it? Oh my goodness. It was that same Abraham Hicks woman, and there was a woman who was a businesswoman. She was a partnership, her and her friend. And they had all these ideas for the business, right? It was an established business, but they had all different ideas and ventures, and let's suppose they had 20 that were all good. They were good, fantastic ideas, and they were trying to figure out what direction they could go. So they presented that to her and said, how do you know? You're laughing.
No, because my eyes going like this. Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, but I'm like, I stop.
I called you out.
I saw you look at it, so it's like...
I actually did it.
Oh, you did it? It looked like you were. Anyways, perception.
You drew attention to yourself. So anyway, she asked, like, how do you know when it is that real, like, you've got all these great ideas, you've got all this, but how do you know when it's the one? Yes. And what the woman said to her is, you know what, all those great ideas, they're great and they feel good and everything like that. But when you come across that one, it is when it is undeniable.
Thank you.
And you feel it here.
Yes.
You start feeling, for some, it's maybe the butterflies. But when it is undeniable, that is the ultimate voice speaking to you.
Thank you.
That is, and I think that's
exactly the best
what
way.
You're saying.
Yeah, you gave the perfect example because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I believe He deals in feeling, not words.
Because it's not necessarily going to be a contrast of a bad idea, and you know it's not, it's bad against the relative good feeling idea. Sometimes you're faced with all kinds of great options,
exactly.
but it's what is the ultimate one.
Yes.
And it's not giving into the temptation of just the good one. It's knowing what the actual
ultimate
goal,
truth
mission,
is. Exactly.
instruction, you know, is. Yeah.
And I think you said it perfectly.
Yeah, that's
and that's the only way I can describe it. It's something that's almost indescribable, but that example that you gave would be exactly what I would say it is for me.
Yeah, and I think in order to get that answer, we really it's saying what you're saying in a different way. We really have to surrender and get out of the way.
Yes,
because we can be convincing ourselves that, you know, the voice to devour that cheesecake.
It's him.
It's him, right?
Enjoy life.
Yes, exactly, right? And it's not to say, like, enjoy life is right. Have some cheesecake, right? For goodness sake. But when you know it's going, you're indulging and you're overindulging and you're doing it to a point where it's a detriment.
Yeah. Also, I would like to add to that, I think when it conflicts with what you're doing.
That's right.
It's the conflict. If there's a conflict involved in what you're doing,
huge. No,
I think that is the actual point. That's where you're making a choice, decide or not. I think when there's a conflict, that's when you know you have to speak to the higher voice. I'm
glad you said that, because I was gonna, at first when you said it, when there's a conflict, that's when you know you have to choose the whatever. But to get the clarity, to be certain, you do have to know that you have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Surrender yourself to that, and be obedient. Be obedient.
But if there's no conflict to eat the cheesecake, eat. You know what I mean?
Eat and be merry. Got any cheesecake?
I know. I wish.
That's funny. That's funny. But I really think that when we start viewing temptations not as temptations, really, I mean, we're creative forces. We're co-creating, and when we really decide that these temptations are, it's an opportunity. It's God saying, you know what? Look, I want you to see what you're made of here. So I'm going to put something out there for you to see what you're made of. For you, you know what it is? I think for you to recognize the power of me that I've placed in you.
That is beautiful. I think that's exactly what it is.
And to the extent that we deny that, we're denying even knowing God in His fullness.
Absolutely, and that is a lot of the results we're seeing today, because people are denying that within. I think that's
interesting.
Very. It is. I'm sorry. I'm kind of in my own work. I'm thinking.
Yeah,
about
no. Every so often we enlighten each other, and then it's like we kind of go.
I kind of drift off. Sorry.
You gotta kind of process it, because it's truly
remarkable.
It is. It is. Well, okay, so temptation. Yes. Temptation turned opportunity.
Yes. Absolutely, and you can overcome.
And we should overcome.
And you will overcome.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess we've
covered that.
So Tracy and I, we would like to, again, thank you for tuning in to us. Again, subscribe to our page so that you can know when we are, when we're releasing another video. If you would like as well to see some of the older episodes that we've had, you can always go to our website, which is seedstalkshow.com. And we'd love to hear from you.
And we'd love to know what seeds you're going to plant today.